you never know what life is gonna take you, and you can't change where you've been. But today, I have the opportunity to choose. Won't have to last always. Just whisper. Even the day after tomorrow will one day be yesterday. I hear my angels whisper. It's too shall pass.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the Reintegration Summit with Queen of Resilience. My name is Pamela Davis. I'm the founder and CEO. A little bit about Queen of Resilience. Our mission is to teach women how to be resilient in every area of their life by increasing mental health awareness, mentorship, and professional development. We just don't work with youth, but we work with women and men as well. And with men, we work with our kings of resilience. So we are in day 2 of the Reintegration Summit, and we are speaking with our teachers and administrators. Yesterday, we had a wonderful time with our parents, and they basically told their concerns, how do they feel, the different type of children, whether your child is an introvert or extrovert, if they're bringing their children back into the system, or if they believe they should have a virtual option. But I am excited today because we get to speak with our teachers. Our teachers are the cornerstone of education. And I know growing up, I had some amazing teachers, and I still know their names, and I still try to keep in contact with them. But I want to hear from this panel tonight. So I am excited. And if everyone can unmute themselves, and I want to make sure that you take the time to introduce yourself. So I will start with Miss Iris McClendon. We're going to go with Miss Denitria Neal, and then Mr. Kyle Harris.
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Iris McClendon, and I am a high school counselor in North County in Ferguson-Florissant School District, and I was a elementary teacher as well. And I am going to be entering into my 12th year into education this school year.
Thank you. Thank you for being on, Miss Iris. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am.
I am Denitria Neal. I'm the coordinator of alternative learning for the Normandy Schools Collaborative and am the founding director for the Center for Academics and Social Advancement, which is CASA, which is the alternative program for the districts. We deal with those students that are at risk for not graduation, those that are in need of a different schedule, those that may have mental health issues that keep them from being in the mainstream traditional setting, and even those that are in the juvenile detention or just leaving the juvenile detention center before going back to the general setting. They stop in CASA, and we use restorative justice, trauma informed. It's a non-punitive program, but we really kind of work together as a family to benefit our students that are at the most at need.
Thank you, Miss Neal. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I am Kyle Harris. I teach 3rd grade in the Normandy Schools Collaborative. This is my my 7th year in education. I started off at the preschool level before they built the early childhood center, and I coach the middle school basketball, and I also coach high school track at Lutheran North.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. I appreciate that. We have a well-versed panel member, so that's amazing. But I kind of want to start off with a question. If your student could describe you using any word, what would that be? If your student could describe you using any word, what word would that be?
Mama.
Yes.
A lot of our students come from, I'm sorry, go ahead, Iris.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, a lot of our students, as you all know, come from homes where the families may not be optimum. And so a lot of times we have to come in as the, in locus parentis, right? And so, and most people say, you don't act like a principal. And I don't. Most times I'm walking around like Big Mama or Medea or somebody.
Yes. Awesome. Anybody else want to take that?
I would say that's similar for me, and just someone that is there for them all the time. I actually had a student just text me now. I had seniors this current year, and so they're going away to school, and they want to know if I'm coming to their going away parties. And so I just think someone that is always there for them, someone that is supporting them and making sure that they're able to have the resources that they need just for the next steps in their life.
Awesome. What about you, Kyle?
For me personally, probably fun. I always tell them I'm gonna be one of the funnest teachers you'll ever have. I always tell them that because I enjoy spending time with the kids. I play with them out at recess. I'll sneak into their gym class sometimes, play with them. I like to be real active with them, while I can. So yeah.
I just heard some amazing things. I heard mama. We always need a teacher that's going to be your mama. Though you have a mama at home, but we need that teacher that's going to be your mother at school. And though I am 31 years old, I have a work mama to go to. So that's amazing. I heard about support and being there. And I also heard about just having fun with your students and letting your hair down. I know, Kyle, your hair is not, it's not a female type of hair, but just letting your hair down and having some fun. I think that's amazing. So we are living in a pivotal time when it comes to the pandemic, when it comes to COVID. And I just want to know, what was your first reaction to the pandemic and how are you doing during this time?
I'll go first. My first reaction, so I had seniors, as I said before. So my first reaction was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? Because we were getting ready for like a senior trip. We were planning graduation. We were planning prom. So we had so many things that we were like literally ready. Like the senior trip was a week away. So we were planning to see if we were going or if we were not going because we hadn't closed school at the time right before they announced that school was going to be closed. And so it was just like, oh my God, what is happening? Are we going to see the kids again? Are we coming back to school? It was just so many unknown questions that we had, and we didn't have any answers to those questions. So it was just like a moment of shock for me because this was like the moment that we had all been waiting for, just getting ready for the end of the school year, students getting ready for, to go away to school, celebrating graduation and all of those things. And it was like, it's not going to happen. So, and that was kind of rough. That was rough being the person to help support the students, being the person to help support parents, teachers, and just, it was rough.
Wow. Wow. Thank you. Anybody else want to take that question?
Well, for me personally, it was a bit nerve-wracking, going through a pandemic is something you never expect to go through in your lifetime, and here we are going through one. A lot of people not knowing if they'll be able to find a job or get back to their job. I will say, with teachers, luckily that kind of helps provide a bit of security, knowing that we still have a virtual option during all of this. But it was pretty bad. It was pretty scary, because they say it affects older people. I'm thinking, well, I'll be able to see my grandparents. It's just a lot of extra safety precautions we have to take now that, it's kind of tough to go through, I will say.
It is. It is.
I didn't think it was going to last as long as it has. I thought we would have been back into the school before the ending of the school year. And so I went from, a much needed break, right? Like remote, let's do this. I was all on board for the fourth quarter remote, but then I actually began to worry specifically for the population of students that I deal with. And rightfully so, we actually had one of our students that was dealing with mental illness that actually committed suicide. during the course. And we have a therapeutic component to our program where we have licensed therapists that's embedded in the program for the students. And I think not being able to they were doing it online and on the phone, but not being able to have that socialization and that face to face, and not being able to get that hug or that touch of reassurance. So I went into worry. We've had, again, my students deal with the juvenile detention center. A lot of them have been reincarcerated, too much time on their hands. So we went from being, oh, wow, this is great, to, oh, no, this isn't going to work anymore.
Wow. I personally did not think it was going to last this long. I did not think that it was going to come to America and to the States. And it actually did. So it's almost disheartening. And it's like, when is this going to end? Because it keeps on, and the cases keeps on going up. So it's like, what do you do during this time? So I want to know, as a teacher, as an administrator, as a counselor, what coping techniques do you all have for yourself? How are you taking care of you during this time? And anybody
I have developed not developed, but redeveloped my love for reading. I used to read fiction novels. I'm very, very, very much into vampires and werewolves. Believe it or not, that whole Twilight thing, I'm all over that. They got a new book, right? But anyway. And so I redeveloped my love for reading nonfiction novels. And my kids will tell you I get lost in books for hours, and it's really helping me to decompress, to detox, and just to relax.
Awesome.
Well, for me, I've, with all this free time now, I've been able to do a lot more, working out, like self-care type things. I used to go from, work to my next coaching gig, and then by the time I get home, I'll just be so tired and dead, but now I've just been kind of focusing on a little fitness. I know a lot of my male counterparts can agree video games can help with stress. It just takes your mind away from everything that's going on, and helps us stay level-headed.
Yes, it does. It does.
Mm-hmm. Both of those are some of the things that I've done too. I bought a bike recently. I know that was and then it was crazy because bikes were hard to find. So it was like looking for a bike all over the city. But yeah, so I was riding my bike, working out, and reading books as well, and just doing more FaceTime with family members and friends, and Zoom calls with my family members and friends, just to stay connected some kind of way.
Awesome. So I heard a lot of great things, right? You bought a new bike. That's amazing. You probably wasn't even thinking about buying a bike before this happened. It's like, okay,
no, not at all.
During the pandemic, I'm going to take the time to read, reading novels, having fun, having a great time. So I think that's awesome. Again, thank you all for joining. We are with the Reintegration Summit through Queen of Resilience, and we thank you all for joining. If you can share this with your followers, it would be amazing. So the next thing I want to say is, I see that you guys are taking a chance to participate in self-care for yourselves, and that's amazing. But does your district have any services that they are offering to you as a teacher and as an administrator and as a counselor?
None at this time.
Wow. Yeah. Is that no for everyone?
Yeah, well, me and Dimitri are in the same district. So.
We're in the same district.
Wow.
Yeah.
What do you think they need to do for you all during this time? Do you guys think that you collectively need to have individuals who are licensed therapists come in to assist you and to help you during this process? What do you think that you need specifically as a district during this time frame?
I think that would have been good. They've had a wellness committee that formulated, but it focused more so on students and returning back for the following year or this upcoming fall, and what we can do to help the students. But I think you hit on something. I don't think any districts that I'm aware of or doing anything in terms of self-care for the staff, right? And while what I think we need, I think you're onto something, having someone come in and teach us self-care and be able to talk, share our woes and our frustrations, and trying to figure out an online platform in the middle of the school year and get all my curriculum up and running, and all this craziness that we threw on teachers at the last minute. That was stressful for a lot of them, and I don't think we took into account what that looked like.
Yeah, I think that is definitely going to be crucial throughout this whole school year, not just at the beginning, as well, because it's going to be an ongoing thing. Like, I think they'll think about it maybe as school starts and teachers kind of start to begin to express their feelings of being overwhelmed. But I think it'll be something that just the effects of being at home march through now and all the way whenever we do are able to go back to school officially in person. And just I think it'll be crucial that they do provide some type of self-care, some type of support to know, because I think that educators feel we aren't supported. I think that that's a thing that we feel by our district, by our parents, and I think it's going to be important that at least we feel supported by our district.
Yeah, because a lot of it can just be super overwhelming, for especially like first year teachers or older teachers that are now trying to integrate straight technology. It's just a lot for different types of educators to handle. So it's definitely something that school districts need to start looking more into, because sometimes some people just need someone to talk to. They don't necessarily want to talk to a coworker or or whoever. It would just be nice to have somebody else to talk to.
That's really shocking that everyone said that there wasn't mental health services provided or even offered, and I do believe that it should have been. That's the first thing that, to me, should have been at the top of the list. While they were getting everything in order, what about our teachers? How do our teachers feel? Because you guys are the ones that actually pour into the students. So if you guys are low in self-care, how are you going to pour on an empty cup? So it's very essential to do that. Yesterday, when we were talking with our parents, they was talking about the different type of learning styles and the different type of students. So you have students that are introverts, you have students that are extroverts. And my question is, how was it adjusting to a virtual environment with your students? How did they feel? How did you feel? Or you guys technical savvy? Do you guys like talking in front of a camera every day and using Zoom? Some people don't. It's all new. So I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
As an alternative learning program, we were already online. So we didn't have to switch to anything. We just basically kept going on the same way that we were, just doing it via Zoom and everything. What we found as an unexpected outcome was some of our students that were the most challenging behavior-wise in the building actually soared on the online format. We didn't see that coming. Like, they did better online than they did actually in the building. And then on the opposite side of that, some of the students that did very well in the building kind of slacked off on the online format. So looking at that data, we understood that some students did better with less distractions, which we already know the data says that, right? But then also some students just really needed that interaction, that day-to-day interaction, to help keep them going.
Yeah, wow. I totally agree. I think that there are students that just some of our students that had high grades already, some of them just checked out because the online wasn't working for them. So I totally agree with that. And some of my seniors that were at our alternative program definitely did. They were already online, so it was very good for them because then they were able to add the Zoom piece to it. So yeah, I agree. I know it's just difficult, I think, for any student to quickly, I think it was the drastic change that kids all had to make. And I'm hoping that with kids knowing for this school year that this is coming, that it'll be a little bit better. I think that education is it's just a field where we're always used to being in person, other than maybe an alternative, a small population of students that need a different plan. But I think this year students know up front, I'm going to either be in, on the online or in person or the hybrid schedules, whichever, the schools have, that it may be a little bit better for some students. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, for me personally, it wasn't too bad. I'm pretty good with technology, and I would say the hardest part for sure was getting the kids to attend the lessons. I had such a struggle contacting parents and trying to get the kids on. If they couldn't do it every day, at least every other day, something just to keep their minds engaged, during that time, because we didn't know when we were going to be able to go back. We didn't know, if we were going to finish the school year out yet. So moving forward, going into this next year, there just needs to be a lot more accountability from the parents, in my opinion, because some of those kids, they need that extra push at home as well. So, there's only so much we can do through a computer screen. So,
wow. Kyle, you just touched on something. We need more accountability for the parents. And you was going right into my next question. I'm like, wait a minute, wait. For students who are timid, what type of instruction will you incorporate into the curriculum for engagement? And you guys talked about how engagement is difficult. And Kyle just said it's a possibility it could be the parents' fault. So what are you guys going to do differently than what you did before?
At the end of the year last year, in terms of accountability, we instituted what was called a hold harmless, which meant basically if you didn't do your grade couldn't go down. Your grade could either go up or stay the same, but you would not be penalized for having not done anything or finished anything. And they did that because of the abruptness of the change, the pandemic, the uncertainty, and they didn't want to make it any more challenging, but I think it was more detrimental. Like Iris was saying, the students that were already doing what they were supposed to do, they checked out because there was no accountability. If I'm going to pass anyway and not do anything, then why should I do anything, right? So this year going in, I know for a fact that that is being changed. There is accountability going into this year, so you can not do anything if you want to. You're gonna be mad at yourself because you'll be repeating, that information. So accountability being implemented is one thing, but also incentivizing, right? Some type of ways for the parents. One thing we kicked around in one of the staff meetings was possibly gift cards for parents, be it Quick Trip or Walmart or something during or another, where we can incentivize for students that have completed or on track or doing things ahead of the schedule.
Yeah, we did that for summer school, and that seemed to help keep them logging on every day and checking in. I had parents texting me and emailing me, make sure that I got their kids' work and stuff, and so the incentive, it helped. Now, granted, I still have those few that didn't really care, didn't get on or anything. But I would say having that type of incentive helped a little bit. It definitely helped.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be important that teachers build that relationship piece with the families and go just the extra mile and understand kind of where we're at. That outside of the class, it's outside of the classroom. So you're going to have to think outside of the box with the gift cards, with the, the text message. That was kind of something that I did over the summer. I had the students, I'm like, let's get. Sorry, I muted. I had like a Google number, so the students were able to text my Google number. And then, just those extra pieces to make sure that you're connected with the students and building a rapport with the students. So I think those are going to be key in making sure that kids are held accountable through their grades, but then also want to work. and continue to work. Because I think they'll start off well. It's going to be making sure they continue to work that we're going to have to stay on top of.
I think building a relationship with the students, of course, is essential. But what about the parents? I know you all said using incentives, but how do you really build a relationship with parents, and what do you do? What are you going to do different? Or are you going to use a Google number, or are you going to start a group session with talking with parents? Like, how do you really connect with these parents?
I do.
So
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, we do have, instead of a Google number, which is probably the same premise, we have a Ring Central where all of the staff were given that number for parents at the end of the year that will carry over to this year. We did a parent meeting via Zoom, basically keeping them updated. As we got updates from the district, we would, particularly for the CASA program anyway, we would do parent meetings via Zoom, and then we had everybody on an email grouping, and so we would send it out via email, and so we kept up contact with them via email. Also the parent meetings via Zoom, and then every teacher was responsible. I told them, these are your hours between 8 and 3 p.m. You are responsible for connecting with these parents when they call and they have questions. And then every 2 weeks, they were responsible for contacting the parents, whether they wanted to or not, to let them know what their child had or had not done.
Yeah. And I think that this is actually going to help teachers to connect with their parents even more. With the Zoom, you'll be able to actually see parents face to face when they're not able to come to a parent teachers conference. So I think it's going to, this is kind of one of those turning points in education for parents, teachers, and students. So I think that using the resource of Zoom, where you can use your phone, you don't have to have the computer or use Zoom, Google, the different platforms that we're using. So I just think that that'll be a good resource for parents to be connected. And we've used the emails and all of those different things as well to send out. And we send out various forms of communication. Awesome. But the Google will be one-on-one, times that you can set up Google and Zoom meetings.
That's awesome. How did you want to add anything?
Yeah. No, they pretty much got that one.
So I think about those students who are straight A students. Then I think about those students who struggle a little bit. So what happens with tutoring? Are you guys still moving forward with tutoring sessions, or tutoring is not offered?
It's interesting that you bring it up, because with budget cuts in my district, I'll say that's something that we brought up as well, because that's something that kind of happens after school. And we don't know what that's going to look like because of the budget, because that is kind of something that they pay teachers to do. So we don't know if we're going to incorporate that throughout the day, have times, set throughout. So it's something that for me in my district is still kind of up in the air, but it is definitely something that needs to happen.
That's the first thing I thought about. I was like, what about tutoring? What is going to happen? Is there a policy in place when it comes to tutoring? So
yeah, so for at my school, they had a group of teachers that did the tutoring program. So I'm not really sure how it's gonna work this year. I think it'll kind of depend on like you as a teacher if they don't have something in place, because there are gonna be kids who need that extra help, whether there's a program in place or not. Like, it's either gonna take it upon yourself as a teacher to go ahead and maybe set something up yourself, or take it upon yourself to get something set up in the district maybe. Because I know kids are gonna need the extra help.
Definitely.
Absolutely. For us, because we're at the secondary level, I do 6th through 12th grade. What we're instituting is that teachers would have office hours where they can have students sign up via appointment, and they can take a cohort of about maybe 4 or 5 students at the most. That way they can still implement the social distancing. And then those kids can come on and get direct instruction as opposed to online. And we have to do it that way. That's one of the downfalls specifically for us is most of my students come to me 2 to 3 grade levels behind, right? Especially in reading. So just to just go cold turkey and say we're going to do Zoom, and it does not help them to not be able to engage, to not be able to get that one-on-one, to not be able to get that in person. And so, yes, remote learning for the social distancing and for the safety, but also our teachers will have, and this is at the CASA program, I'm not speaking for the whole district, but at the CASA program, and I think the high school as well, we're going to have teachers having office hours. That way we can control who's coming in the building. We can control how many people are in the building, as well as in the classrooms. But students that are really, really struggling, that may need a little bit of more attention, will be able to access those teachers in person.
Yeah. I think that's a great way. We do have a question from the audience, and I'm just going to go ahead and take it now. I think it's a good question. Natasha Harriet said, how can parents better support their child's teacher? How can parents better support their child's teachers?
By not saying, not my child.
Not my baby.
This never happens at home, right?
Not my baby.
You know, but understanding that teachers are allies, right? Not enemies.
Yeah.
A lot of that comes from parents themselves not having positive or a positive experience when they were in school. So they bring a lot of those preconceived notions. This happened to me when I was in school, and I know all you teachers are the same, but understanding that the teachers are allies, and that at the end of the day, the goal is the betterment of your child. Everybody wants the same thing, and just understanding that if we work for this together, you can even talk to the teacher about your insecurities or about your apprehensions. I don't feel, a lot of parents that come in and say, I just don't feel this is fair. And they have the right to feel that way, right? And so let's talk through why you don't feel this is fair. And maybe we can come to a common agreement, because at the end of the day, it's about the child.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely that I would say the same thing.
Yeah. Just making sure you're involved, make sure okay, so you have this for math homework tonight, you have this for English. Did you get it done? Okay, let me check with your teacher. Just something like that. If they can check in, make sure their child's doing okay, or if they can check in and make sure that their child's been doing what they're supposed to be doing, that can help with so much, especially with the virtual, with how everything's going. Just communication is going to be the most important thing from both the teachers and the parents.
And not waiting, because it is virtual now, not waiting that time, to let things, if your student is struggling, your child is struggling, as a teacher and as a parent, I feel like you should just, say it right then and there, like, hey, they're struggling. I think sometimes we wait, we wait a week, we wait 2 weeks, we wait a month, and then now they're really far behind. I think, you start to speak up as soon as possible, so that the teacher knows, so that you can kind of get ahead of those things and find the resources.
Yeah. And also being responsive, right? If you get a call and you see it's the teacher's number or the district's number, or if you get an email, respond to it. Actively be an active participant, right? We're not trying to stalk you. We're basically just trying to let you know about your child's education. We don't want to harass you, but if you can respond, then we can build something together.
So if I have any parents who are listening, please take initiative. Listen to these teachers of what they're trying to say, because they are here to help your children. So I really appreciate that. So I think what we're battling with now is, should we have our children back into the building, or should it be virtual? So if students are allowed to come back into the building, is your current district prepared to operate safely? So I just want you guys to go through the process of what you are doing in your district.
So from an administrator's perspective, it's not cookie cutter, right? And a lot of people are saying, well, you know, Francis Howell is doing this, and Ferguson Florissant is doing this, and Jennings is doing this. Why is everybody not doing it the same? Well, it all comes down to what works for your individual district. Just so that you know, there was no guidance that came from the Department of Education about what we should do. There were no guidelines. No one gave instructions about what that looked like. And so you have districts such as your Rockwoods and your Parkways that are able to handle the social distancing better because of the tax value and because of their budget. They have more funds. And then you have districts such as Enormity that does not have as much funds. And so we can do as best as we can, but it won't look the same as a district that has additional funding. So to answer your question specifically for our district, is it completely CDC requirement available? No, it is not. And they tried to get it as best as they could based upon the budget that we have. And it was for that reason that they decided to split it between virtual for 5th through 12th grade and then in person for pre-K through 4th grade, with still having that virtual option for those little people that's learning how to read, that needs to see the teacher's mouth to be able to formulate the words and the patterns and things like that. That's the reason they did it that way, because at the end of the day, it comes down to funding and what you can afford to do, and also trying to keep our teachers employed, because if we go all virtual, or our staff, somebody doesn't have any work. So trying to keep everybody engaged. So again, we went back to a virtual as much as possible because there's still that unknown.
Yeah, and I think for our district, that is why we did go all virtual. And we're a large district. I think even our elementary schools, all of our high schools are large in my district, with the exception of 2 of our smaller high schools. But the 2 large high schools were large, so I don't think that there was a way that they felt that we would be safe without, just going all virtual. But that is also back to teachers with their jobs. I think that is a big thing, that is coming up as well. So creating the schedules for teachers is what is being discussed right now before teachers come back to school next week, I believe. And it's making sure that they're doing everything that they're supposed to within the contract hours, because because we're virtual. And so on one hand, you're like, could we have done something similar to Normandy or Jennings or some of the St. Charles County schools where you have some of the kids come back? But I just think that there's no one size fits all answer for any school district, because it's so many unknowns and you have so many risks at hand. And it's just too many unknowns, and you have, other people's most prized possessions in your hand. And so I think that was why our district, because we are one of the larger districts with at the Black community. So I think that's why our district and Hazelwood decided to just go all virtual, just from jump.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and I'm like Denitria was saying, the K through 3rd will be in person, so I'll be in the building and stuff. And if like she said, if they have parents or students that want to do virtual, they can. So it'll be interesting to see, how many kids I'll have show up, every day, or it'll be interesting. Hopefully it can stay open for, for a while. If they're gonna have everyone go back, hopefully it'll be concrete and not have to go all virtual again. But we'll see. It's depending on this second wave or.
Yeah. It's so up in the air, you really don't know what to do. Everybody is trying to make a decision. Administrators, of course, the president, everybody is just don't know what to do. And people are trying to come up with a great plan of action. Some of it is working and some of it's not. But I had the opportunity to look up the remarks from the roundtable with Vice President Pence about safely reopening schools. And I'm going to read this to you. He said, Trump and I believe that we got to get our kids back to school. We got to get them back to school this fall. And that's why I'm pleased to be here at Thales Academy. And I want to thank all of you for leading by example, not only here in North Carolina, but I expect people around the country will see your example here and be inspired to know that we can safely reopen our schools. It's best for our kids, it's best for working families, it's best for North Carolina, and best for all America. Now, I did not actually hear him say this wonderful speech, but I can just imagine the emphasis that he put on certain things. What do you all think about that statement that was made?
I think it's contradictory to the narrative that's been put out. Either it's safe or it's not. Right. So we got to stick with one narrative. Because if we're steady seeing the incline in the cases, and anytime there is a grouping or a gathering, and then we see cases that are, becoming positive out of that, I don't know that anybody can safely say that it's safe to put the students back in the school. I don't really, when there's a lot of them, thousands of kids, sometimes upon thousands of kids returning to buildings at one time, when we're steadily seeing cases that are popping up positive within group settings, I think it's totally contradictory to the narrative that's been put out.
I agree. And what I've been saying is, with schools, what's different from schools is that we'll be, in a building for 7 hours, 6 to 7 hours. And that's what's different with, some of the other things that are happening outside of a school setting, is that you'll just be in a building all day long, with 2 bathrooms. And, it's not like it's multiple bathrooms for students to use. It's 2 bathrooms. And also the things that you have to remember too is the resources. We don't have a lot of custodial staff in our buildings as well. I think that's a piece of it too. Some buildings don't have, a lot of custodial, but some buildings have 1 custodian in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. So I think those are pieces why a lot of districts have, even taken into consideration of either doing hybrid, virtual. So.
Yeah, I mean, this might just be my perspective. I just don't feel like I don't feel like they truly care. I think he said it's what's best for our kids. I can guarantee he's never stepped foot in one of our buildings before. So for him to say he knows what's best for our kids. Now, he could have been speaking generally. Kids in general need, to be back in school. But I don't know. I just can't. I don't follow anything he says nowadays.
Yeah, it's such a hard thing to say. Because on one hand, you do feel like kids should be back in school, because from a lot of our students, I know for my students, the school is their safe place. But it also can be, if you put too many of the kids, a lot of the kids can contract COVID as well. So, that's why I don't. Yeah, I don't know that it's very contradictory.
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. You go ahead, Kyle. You were talking
to
first.
Piggyback off of that, kids, they school might be their only place where they can get a full belly, feel loved, have socialization. So I 100% agree that I would rather be in person, but just given the dynamics of what's going on, is it really worth it? I think that's just what everyone's battling with right now. Is it really worth putting, kids, grandparents in their lives at stake? Or if their mother is sick, what are they supposed to do? I guess they can do virtual, but it's just a lot that goes into this.
Yeah, so many unknowns. Yeah.
I have a lot of friends that are teachers, and one of the things that we're not talking about is the safety of the teachers, right? We're talking about how it benefits the students and how it benefits the parents and how it benefits the world. But what about the safety of our teachers that have to come in contact with these students every day, right? Some of them already have pre-existing conditions. Some of them are already in terms of at-risk populations, and some of them have contracted the virus, and they tell you that you can contract it a second time. So a lot of teachers are really, really apprehensive, and what they're saying is they're protecting everybody but the teachers. I've heard that said a lot of times from some of our educators. They're worried about everybody, but no one's talking about the safety and the lives of the teachers that have to go into this every day. And I don't think it was done by design. I don't think there was any malicious intent in reference to that, but a lot of teachers are a little disgruntled at this moment.
Yeah.
That's
And
the good. Sorry, Kyle, you can.
I was just gonna one more piggyback. I was gonna say I've had a lot of people that I've talked to about me going back, and they'll be like, "Oh, well, the kids will be fine. They're not the ones that are gonna get sick." And I'm just like, they are gonna be sick, but they just won't have symptoms, or they may not show the symptoms, and then they go home and get their grandma or grandpa or somebody else sick.
Their parents, yeah.
It's been avoided this whole time.
That's interesting that you bring up the safety of you all as well, because that's important. If you want the parents to be safe and the students to be safe, what about the teachers? So my background, or not my background, but I currently work in HR. I'm an HR specialist. So when I'm thinking of a teacher or somebody that is infected by the virus, I think about leave. I think about those individuals that don't have leave and what you're going to do in that case. So if a teacher is infected, the teacher tests positive, who pays for the test? Okay, if the teacher tests positive, do you send those 5, 10, 15, or 20 kids all home? Do you test all of those 5, 10, 15 kids at home? Like, what do? Then you go back and that student goes home.
Exactly.
How are the parents going to be tested? Some of these tests are coming back within a day. Some of these tests are coming back within weeks. So what do you do when you have this dynamic? And is anybody talking about this? So I want to know if you do know, because everybody may not know, what does your human resources have in, what is their plan? What are they doing for you all personally? Because they should be doing something.
So in reference to FMLA, there is actually a COVID specific FMLA that they have approved, and it works the same, right? But it's just for those individuals that are taking leave in reference to COVID-19 specifically. Normandy is unique that we have an Affinia Health Center that is embedded on our high school campus as a partner of ours. So those individuals that need to be tested, there is a plan in place for them to have that testing at the Affinia Health Center. And it is my understanding that the test can take anywhere from 24 to 48 hours to get those results back.
Okay.
We have a plan in place as well. So I believe it's 14 days they give you to quarantine, and then I believe you would have to use your days after that 14 days.
You have to use your own days, or
yeah. So if you're out past the 14 days, then you would have to use your own days. And then past those, if you don't have any days past that, then you will probably just be docked or something like that.
And there was,
I'm sorry.
I was going to say, there was some backlash in reference to Iris was saying from the teachers and from the staff. Why, if you all know this is a possibility, why am I being penalized by having to use my days, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I wouldn't have had to use my days if you didn't force me to come into the building. So there has been some backlash. Like I said, there has been some disgruntled, some upset teachers, staff around, just them feeling like they're less than, and no one is worried about their well-being.
Is there a policy in place for exposures? So if you expose someone, is there a policy in place for that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Individuals be notified.
I don't think we haven't discussed all of that yet. I'm pretty sure all of this will be talked about in our PDs coming up, as far as exposure and sanitation and stuff. So I'm not really sure right now, but I would assume if the teacher gets sick that you would have to quarantine that classroom, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the only thing that would make sense to keep it from spreading.
Yeah, I think that they've just said that they would follow the CDC guidelines, and then because we are going virtual, that hasn't been something that we have discussed, down detailed.
Yeah, it's a big risk with opening back up a building. Even with me actually going into work twice a week, it's a big risk because you're on edge, and sometimes you're looking at people like, oh, they just coughed, and you
Right.
just could be your allergies or something. You freeze like, wait a minute, do they have it? Like,
Yeah.
it's so many different concerns, and it's like, okay, this is
Yeah.
making me paranoid,
And
Yes. Yes.
the right precautions for ourselves as well. I believe it was Iris that mentioned early about school is a safe place. And I guess I don't even know if this question can be answered, but if school is a safe place, how do we prepare our students to be safe at home? And how do we do that? Because you have students that may not have, I know, I'm not sure if you guys are doing, I'm sure you are, but I know people are having free meals. Because some students, the only time they get to eat, is during school hours. So how do what do you think we should do? It may not even be a possibility, but how do we make home a safe place in the midst of this pandemic?
I know some things that our district has done. They have done the food. They had bus deliveries for food. They did lunch, breakfast, and lunch. And I believe that they did tried to deliver lunch like the day before, breakfast for the day before, so that they would have maybe 2 meals. And then they've also done hotspots to make sure that they have internet. I don't know what more we could do, maybe even asking families what they would need to help. There's other, just to try to find out what it is that they would need. But that is a good question. I think as an educator, those are things that we kind of worry about when you do say all virtual. What are our students going to have to deal with at home? Because that during the day, at least that they have this safe space with, healthy environment, learning environment, a teacher that cares about them, a principal that cares about them, a counselor that cares about them.
Yeah.
So
it all comes down to the dynamic of the home, right? Because you can't force anybody to do anything. But what we can do is, I think, incorporate some safety procedures into curriculum. If it's nothing but a hashtag stay safe, what do these bullet points mean? You know what I'm saying? Keep your hands washed, wear your mask, you know what I'm saying? Stay 6 feet apart. And when you're when you're in the home, just making sure that you're keeping your hands washed at all times. These are just some things that we can just remind kids to do. What I would do at dismissal, they actually bought me like a little hashtag thing I would hang up at dismissal when the kids would walk out, and I just say, weird stuff like say no to drugs, Black Lives Matter, keep off the grass, and I'd say it every day as they were walking out the door, so that they was like, this is Miss Neal's hashtag hour, right? And so maybe especially for our little ones, right? Teaching them about hand washing, teaching them about keeping their hands to themselves, kafudi, right? Keep all hands, feet, and other objects to yourself. Teaching them about, wearing your mask and just reiterating it daily. But again, as we know as educators, a lot of that stuff stops when they leave our door. And it goes again to the dynamic of the household. So we can teach them while we have them, but it's going to become that partnership with the household to make sure that those things are upheld once they reach their doorstep.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, I know we definitely did provide food and stuff still after, because we had spring break, and then that's when all the other schools started closing down. So then right after spring break, we just we went right into no school, and they were still delivering food and stuff. But like, so for me personally, this year, I feel like it's gonna be really hard to make your students safer than you want them to be, because when they come to school, that's a way for them to get away from whatever's going on at home, whatever is bothering them at home. They can get away from it for 8 hours of the day, give them that mental break, that safe place, like you've been saying. And as a teacher now, I don't know how productive, or I don't know how much of a safe space I can provide if they're still in the environment. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I
It's
agree.
it's mm,
It's difficult.
yeah.
It's difficult, yeah. I mean, I said the same thing. I mean, for myself, not that my home is not a safe place, but I said you're so used to going to work and then you come home to your safe place to kind of digress and breathe. And I said, so like now for kids, they're going to be maybe where the school was their safe place, and then going back home where it wasn't, now you're just there all day. And I think it's just hard for kind of everybody. And those are some areas that we would probably just kind of have to work through on what are some guidelines to kind of put in place and different things to put in place to make that a safe place for you and comfortable place for you.
Definitely.
I was gonna say, I feel like now more than ever is important for teachers to build those relationships, because it's a lot easier to do it in person, but now building relationships is more important than ever, because like now you personally, your Zoom call or whatever may be their escape now. Building that relationship with them can still help them be able to talk to you and tell you if something's going on or if they need help. So it's, as teachers now, we definitely have to focus on building relationships.
Yeah.
Right. Building relationships. I think that's amazing. Not only are we going through a pandemic, we have a continuous struggle of the racial divide with George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and so many more. So my question to you as an educator, what ways are you supporting your students during the continuous struggle? What are you doing? Have any questions come up with your students that they are asking you? Are they asking you to get out and march with them? Because some of our students are leading these protests, which I think is amazing. So what is your take on that?
Well, for me, I work with the younger kids, so I kind of try to make sure that they're informed of what's going on, just so they know, because a lot of conversations that you have with your students, they may or may not have had at home. So it's just good to either reiterate it or introduce it to them. Things that they should and shouldn't do, things like that. It's pretty important.
We participated at the COS program in an organization or a program called Gateway to Change, which is a network of all the Missouri state high schools, rural, urban, county, city alike. And the students would come together and discuss social issues, talk about things that plague their specific community and things like that. Now, I will say this: once we went on the pandemic, that fell dormant because we were all wholly focused on academics. And again, like Iris was saying, trying to make sure that our seniors stayed on track to graduate. So things like that kind of fell through the crack. But you said that, and it brings up another avenue. We can still participate in such things, even if it's just within the confines of our own building, and do those virtual online too.
Yeah. Our district did lead a march for that kind of was in support of George Floyd back in June, I believe it was. And our students kind of led it. We had 5 students from the 3 high schools that spoke at the march once we got to our final destination. And I think it was very powerful having the students kind of lead it. And then they have, for going forward, the students will be participating in different conversations around social justice. And then our district is also starting a social justice campaign for the upcoming school year.
That's great. I'm glad you guys are doing. I just wanted to know your take. I haven't enjoyed this conversation with you all, just to hear your voice, hear your concerns, and I definitely support you all in any type of way. And before we go to the next segment, we're bringing our therapist on. Any takeaways, any encouraging words that you would like to say to some teachers out there, to tell them to keep pushing, keep moving, and everyone is in this together. If anyone want to take that would be great.
Mhm. I'll start again as an administrative perspective. I don't want teachers, counselors, walking counselors, support staff to think that the decisions that the districts are making are out of malicious intent, or that they're specifically slighting certain populations of employees and staff. That is not the case. We are in continuous and numerous conversations trying to make this work for everyone involved. And so just, I would say, stay prayerful, understand that we are trying to make the best decisions, not just for our students, but it's for our staff as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yeah, I would piggyback off of that. That is definitely one thing that I think that all educators should definitely take into consideration, that administration is not making the decisions that are out to get, educators. But I think that incorporating that self-care to try to not worry as much, even though it's kind of hard, but just making sure that you take some time to kind of focus on yourself throughout this time. And just as we go back to school and as things kind of get hectic, I think that teachers and educators should make sure you're kind of doing something that you do self-care for yourself. And we're in this together. It's a new learning curve for all of us, virtual learning, whether you do it at the beginning of the school year or throughout the year, because I think, that may be something that we all end up doing off and on throughout the year. So we're in it together.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty much it. Running together. It's a new era right now. Unfortunately, it's because of a pandemic, but there's nothing to do but move forward. So, parents that need to, stay on your kids. Teachers, do what you're supposed to do as an educator to better, your students. And we just gotta work together to get through this. Check on each other. And like Iris was saying, do your self-care, because it's definitely going to be needed, during this upcoming school year.
Awesome. Thank you all for those encouraging words. I hope you guys were encouraged out there by our teachers and administrators and counselors. You guys did an amazing job, and let us continue to support them in the work that they do. Parents, please take the initiative in order for your students to go to the next level. So I thank you all for your time. We're going to bring in our counselors. And our counselors are amazing. They are board members of Queen of Resilience. We have Miss Melissa Douglas and Mr. Josh Jones here with us today. And I thank you all for coming in and just pulling out your heart. And you guys did an amazing job yesterday. So I'm just going to hand the mic to you all for you to go forth and encourage these parents out there, not parents, but teachers out there, from a perspective of mental health and some tools they may need to survive and keep moving during this pandemic. So I'm going to hand it over to you all.
All right. Well, thank you, Pam, so much. Your questions were so on point today. I was just listening in the background. Like these questions are so thought provoking and just so right on. And I don't know about you, Josh, but this is night 2 where before they bring us on, they just close it on out already.
Doing that job completely. Like but I'm more than okay with that. That's a good problem for me.
Yeah. So I just want to thank the educators tonight, because just sharing your experience and and hearing again the experience from you all, but then also just the tips that you give. I think Josh can agree with me that one thing that we do as therapists is we do like group therapy, or even if it's not therapy, we do like group like psychoeducation groups. And the best thing about groups as opposed to just individual work is that the particular participants in the group get a chance to learn from each other, right? It's not just that one-on-one experience where the therapist is talking to the client. I get to hear that somebody else is also having the same experience that I'm having. And then I get to hear, well, what is that person doing for coping? And how is that person getting over that is in the same shared experience as me? So I love tonight that our educators in speaking to each other and the parents and things, like you all gave such great just kind of tips and tools to think about, that I hope our other educators and teachers and things are saying, you know what, I can do that because my other educator let me know that this is a good thing to do. Yeah, so it was really, really good. One thing I want to say for today, just in listening, like I really like that our format is that Josh and I get to sit back and listen before we come in and give any input in things. And one thing that I just want to highlight is, I know we have just a short time today, is bring back to the forefront of the conversation how each of the educators said, we don't really have the support and it doesn't seem like the focus is largely on us and our care and how we're going to navigate this. And I don't want us to go by that quickly and lightly, because without these educators and these teachers and this staff, there is no school. And when we think about last semester at the onset of COVID, and all of us parents had to become parents and teachers, right? We were all on social media and in conversations with family and things, praising our teachers, because we like, woo, we don't know how y'all do it. Right? And so as we think about transitioning into a new school year where there's been a little bit more planning and a little bit more intentionality around what virtual schooling looks like, parents, let's keep that same energy for our educators. Let's appreciate them. Let's support them. Let's root them on, because they also, probably a lot of them, are parents or caregivers as well. So as we're in the seat of trying to navigate working and schooling and chaperoning our kids while they're schooling, we also have our educators that are probably in the same position of trying to, facilitate their kids learning while they do our kids learning as well. So yeah, that was kind of the first thing that was on my mind tonight. Josh, what you got?
Man, I took so many notes, man. It was just such a rich discussion. I took a couple pages of notes. It was great. No, I think really it's just to piggyback off what you were saying. It's just I with that lack of support, it's so evident how much there is this need for us to be making sure we're distributing tools to be able to combat burnout. Yep. Because I don't see, without certain levels of support being in place for teachers to be taking care of their own mental health, how we can expect them not to get burnt out. And if we have burnt out teachers, then that means we have students who aren't learning at the levels that they could or should be. And I think that just doing some reading a little bit before we came into this, it's about some of the teachers' responses on the through different polls and whatnot, and just the general emotions that they feel during this season as they're reintegrating into this session, to this school year session. Most emotions were negative, but some of the top three that they said were just feeling frustration, stress, and anxiety. Are all directly correlated with burnout and feeling like this may not be your field. This, feeling like you don't want or you're not equipped to do the work that you've been put in a position to do. And I guess I just wanted to kind of elaborate a little bit more about some of those emotions, and so we can have a clear understanding. So I think understanding emotions is essential to being able to respond to them in a way that is most helpful. So just speaking of frustration first, I know when you hear frustration, stress, and anxiety, those are things that we feel like probably sound, or likely there's a lot of overlap in how we would describe them, but there are key differences in how we experience them, which means that there are key differences in how we should be responding to them. So starting with frustration, it's felt when some of our goals are inhibited, and I heard a lot of that being expressed through what the teachers were sharing with from their experiences is that we have the goals of making sure this is a safe space for our students. And, that's something that we take pride in because we understand that they might be coming from homes and situations that aren't safe. And there's a big, huge, impediment to that when it comes to this, what we're dealing with the COVID virus, and just understanding that, frustration is something that you're feeling when your goals might be inhibited in some way, and making sure that you, as much as you can, controlling what you can control is one of my favorite mantras. Setting yourself out as clear-cut goals for yourself as you can in your classroom. And stress, it's when we're in an adverse or demanding circumstance, which is exactly what it is that you're dealing with when you're dealing with a lack of resources or a lack of support. I think those things are directly related to stress, and I think, like they said, there's a lot of ways that us as community members, us as parents, us as people who are dedicated to our young people having quality education, that we can make sure that we are making these circumstances that they're in as less tedious as possible. And it's because, like we said, teachers are certainly some of our most underappreciated, underrated, under everything. They don't get nearly enough as much credit, as much pay as they should. But yes, and then just with anxiety, just uncertainty, inability to control what the future holds for us. This is such uncertainty. I'm sure the use of the word uncertainty in this season has probably gone through the roof. I'm sure there's some Google numbers somewhere about being searched or tweeted and Facebooked and Instagram. I'm sure there's all types of numbers related to how much more we're using the word uncertainty, and how that's directly related to the anxieties and the worries that come with this season. I just wanted to kind of highlight some of those things, and I'll continue to talk to some of those more solutions as we continue this discussion. But Melissa, what were you thinking in terms of kind of, I don't know, piggybacking off of there, just whatever you want to connect with that?
I like that when you brought up those specific emotions, because the minute that they shared that there hasn't been a discussion about us, there hasn't been support, I know that it's possible. I've had the opportunity, and unfortunately, both of the programs had limited funding, but we know that just a conversation and rehaul in our education system and how funding works just is a whole nother conversation. But I've had the opportunity twice now to be a support to teachers in a therapeutic way through program. So one was through a partnership with St. Louis Public Schools and SLU, and then a conglomerate of other organizations where I was able to provide mental health support to the teachers, not the students, which was, I think, kind of one of the first of its kind kind of programs. And then earlier when COVID began, kind of at the onset, Wyman partnered with Normandy Collaborative, and I was able to do about 4 weeks of some group wellness coaching with them, right? So those are two local programs that, they happened. There was limited funding, but they still, I think we laid a very solid foundation. So I want our educators to be empowered to know that, going and lobbying and really advocating for yourself with the administration, to let them know that, hey, this is something that we need. Like Josh mentioned burnout and compassion fatigue and like all those kind of things. Some of the most passionate people in any field. And when we talk about our teachers, we know we have some passionate teachers, but when you don't have the proper self-care and support and ability to kind of disconnect from some of these things, that light just fizzles a little bit. And that's something that we don't want at all. And so just to kind of piggyback from what Josh was saying, those emotions and hearing just the impact that we know some of those heavy emotions can have when we have them chronically present, is making sure that, we don't have experiences where we're expecting unaddressed emotions to just go away, right? We know that having some of those high feelings of frustration and stress and overwhelm and anxiety, they're going to show up in other ways. They're going to show up in us being short-tempered. They're going to show up in us not having much patience or not communicating effectively. Or when we log off of that Zoom call, we're going to be short-tempered with our families, or we're just not giving to ourselves, right? So I just want to really encourage our educators to definitely make that time for you. And I know Josh can agree with me that we know that it's hard, right? When your job is to give to other people as your job, it can feel very, very hard to continue to give to yourself first, which we all encourage you to do, but it's possible, right? So that is important. So I just want to remind you that as you go into working at home, or if you're going into the office and maybe your kids are doing school at home, whatever the situation might be, set up the situation as best as you can for you. So if you're going to be working from home virtually as an educator, make sure that you're working at home in a room or place that you can kind of separate from, right? So I tell people, if you're virtually working, don't do it in your bedroom. Don't do it in places of relaxation, so you can build in a physical separation of spaces. Hopefully you have a room where you can close the door at 3-4 o'clock and say, I'm not going back in there to work till tomorrow. Right? So really think about some creative ways that you can give to yourself, that you can give to your home and your family, in ways that you can process through and release some of that anxiety and frustration and stress, right? As adults, journaling is still a great thing to do. Taking a walk, just getting out into nature is something that's really helpful. You know, I know that we've probably settled into, and I know I have settled into some comfort eating during COVID, but really nutrition and physical activity really do help our brains to function effectively. Right. So it's the little things, and don't think that anything is too small that you can give to yourself so that you can fill your cup up as you are pouring into our babies every day.
Absolutely. And just to really piggyback off of that, and just I probably would, like I said, I wouldn't be a therapist if I didn't encourage it. There's great resources out there for you to be able to seek out your own therapy for yourself as teachers. Mental Health of America is a great resource to be able to kind of search and see what type of things you might, symptomology, things you might be dealing with, and things you want to be like, okay, I'm sensing maybe I'm a little bit more irritable, and I'm not connecting with my students or my family in the ways that I would like to. And just making sure that you're getting and have somebody to talk to about those things, because that is so important. And I think Miss Melissa spoke to it very well in terms of a lot of the things that we're talking about, because I can certainly relate to kind of nutrition and even sleep schedules and things like that slipping during the season. But it's so important that those are things were incorporated. And I was so excited to hear how the teachers have been incorporated in their own ways, their own self-care, from the reading to the exercise to the video games and biking and all the different things that they're doing. It's so important for us to be able to be as effective as you're called to be as teachers in that space. Because if you don't have that room to where you're taking care of yourself, it's going to be that much harder for you to be taking care. Like you said, it's your job to take care of young people, take care of their minds, make sure that you're able to pour into them in the ways that you've been trained to do. And those things are so important. And I think that another important thing to kind of incorporate into that is positive self-talk. So being aware of how you are framing certain things about yourself, about your situation, because they have such a huge impact and they translate. And those things are modeled for the young people. And I think you'll be able to see as you're able to reframe it. Not that you kind of walk through life with these, rose petal glasses necessarily, but that you are always able to acknowledge and accept what's in front of you. And whether that's a student throwing a tantrum or a student misbehaving in a way, just accepting it so that you can respond to it as effectively as you possibly can. And I think that those things are directly associated with how we are reframing situations so that we can be as effective in those spaces as possible. And I'm not sure how much of it is incorporated or you're able to incorporate without certain levels of training. But I know that there's a lot of research being done through the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence that is directly related to a certain emotional intelligence format for teachers to be able to use in an educational setting. It's called the Ruler program, or the Ruler format. I encourage you to look into that, just helping us to be able to not only help our students to recognize, understand, label, express, and regulate is kind of what it stands for, the Ruler. Emotions and what we're dealing with, but also helps us to be able to integrate those things into our own lives so that we can be our best selves for our students and for their parents and for everybody that's there and keeping there. And I think the studies are clear that it not only creates an environment that's, leads to higher, test scores and educational, prowess, but it leads to happier classrooms. The students are happier, teachers are happier, and they're experiencing these educational spaces in a new way. And I think especially now in this time that we're dealing with, it's important that we are able to have that peace of mind when we come into a classroom, when we're in those settings, because there's so much else going on at any given time that it's important that we're able to incorporate those things as well. Yeah. For sure. I'm trying to think. I took so many notes. Another piece that I was talking about. What did you hear? Did you get kind of that thread of like ways to like make sure that people are staying motivated, whether they're motivating students or parents? Did you kind of catch on to that thread as well?
No, I didn't.
Yeah. So I heard that there's a piece where it's like, man, we're struggling to make sure that our students are staying motivated, whether it's through the virtual learning, or parents are staying motivated to be engaged. Mm-hmm. And, one of the pieces that I thought would be important to share is that it's an acronym that I've learned about through something we call motivational interviewing in therapy, and things that help us to stay motivated. And it's called AMP. So it's like three things. So it's like autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So when you're working to keep people motivated, it's about making sure that they have their own autonomy, that they're having mastery over whatever it is that they're doing, and that that there's purpose in it. So autonomy just is the sense of self-direction. I know that's a little bit difficult in classroom settings, but showing the children, the young people, the students that you can trust them to do things the way that they feel is best for them, but making sure that obviously it has to be reeled in a way that's appropriate for the classroom and for the school setting, but giving them that sense that they can be trusted with some level of self-direction. And mastery is just giving them a sense of progress. Let them know when they're doing well. Whether like like I said, I think these things apply to students and parents the same. Let them know when you see them doing things that are different than how they did it last year, or improving, and they've made progress in these certain areas, or how they did it in the beginning of the quarter, or how they did it versus how they were doing it over the summer. And then purpose, allowing them to having a connection to something that's bigger than themselves as it relates to the outcomes of them being, able to leave that classroom having learned something new that day, even if it's something that they feel like they won't be able to use, or that's something I hear a lot. I serve people, young men between the ages of 16 and 20. It's like, man, what I need to learn about the quadratic formula for, I'm never going to use that ever again in my life, and just this history lesson, what does it have to do with me, and just helping them to see the bigger picture of what it all is. Because what I help them to see is that while you might not have to use the quadratic formula again, you're learning indirectly some problem solving skills there. So like them to see the bigger picture of what it means to leave the classroom setting with the tools that you're giving them through your daily school lessons. So that's autonomy, mastery, and purpose.
Nice. Autonomy, mastery, and purpose. AMP. We can remember that. And I didn't realize you were talking about with our educators talking here. So I definitely heard that. And one thing that I've been noticing as a trend right now with a lot of people is just feeling lack of motivation, feeling exhausted, not being able to really kick into gear the way that they normally would, right? And so we have to remember the effects of like mental and emotional exhaustion. A lot of people I hear are kind of shaming themselves. They're like, well, I'm not doing nothing. I'm working from home. I'm not really doing a whole lot. I'm not ripping and running the way that I used to. And I'm like, yeah, but you're emotionally and mentally, and your soul is tired. There's a lot that's going on right now that has been going on for months. And again, when we talk about that uncertainty of not knowing when things are going to end and how our lives might look again in the future, is very, very mentally and emotionally exhausting. So one thing that I was thinking of for our educators is, I know, not only for our students, we talked about that quite a bit, but for our educators too, like the highlight of working in the school is that you got summers off, you know, and I know your summer break has not looked how it historically has, or how you planned for it to, right? So I would really encourage educators, you know, in the next few weeks, and I know you're probably already in the swing of things of preparing for when school starts really soon, but really, really give yourself some intentional time to mentally and emotionally kind of break away and just have some moments of peace and centering and mindfulness for yourself. And I hope that some of you have been doing it over the last months anyway, but because of just the climate of everything, we talk about the racial unrest, we talk about the pandemic, we talk about the election. We know election years are stressful, and all the political games that kind of come up, right? All these things work together and they are exhausting mentally and emotionally. So I really just challenge you to give yourself, even if it's just the next week or so, to just really do a hard reset and really think about, what does that reset look like for me? And what do I need? What do I need more of? You know, what do I need to let go of? And really just kind of really grounding yourself a little bit more and better, because we all felt kind of off kiltered at the beginning of this, but really finding a way to ground yourself and get some rest and rejuvenation to really do your best and put your best foot forward coming up.
Absolutely. I say it all the time. You can't pour from an empty cup. You got to do whatever it is you need to do to get your tank back on full. Because we need y'all, and we're here to support y'all however we can. We need y'all well. The students need y'all well. The parents need y'all well. The administrators need y'all well. Because, you know, whatever angle of it is that we're seeing and viewing and experiencing this reintegration process. You know, it's important that you all are taking that time, and the only way it's going to come is with intentionality. It's not something that's just going to fall in your lap, because it's not something, unfortunately, especially us, you know, as we're talking about, you know, people of color, we're not as, you know, it's not as ingrained into our culture for us to take as much care of ourselves as this season requires us to do. But it's so essential for us to be able to perform at the levels that we're expected to, and for the results that we're all, you know, striving for and hoping for. It's so important for us to be making sure that we're doing whatever it is, whether that's, you know, finding a yoga mat, whether it's just waking up in the morning and making stretching out a routine, whatever it is, find a routine for your wellness practices so that it can become something that becomes second nature to us all.
Yeah, and really release the pressure to perfect this experience, to make this virtual experience be, you know, exactly like what in person. You know, I'm hearing people worried about, you know, students educationally falling behind and all these other kind of things. Like, we are in a season where we're doing the best that we can, and it's not the same experience, and it won't be the same experience. And everybody's going to be on the same playing field next year or whenever things come to a place of normalcy again. So just, I hope our parents are being graceful, and then also just our educators, like, releasing that pressure and that angst of perfecting this experience this time around. Like, none of us are expecting that. And what you bring and what you can do and how you can connect with these students in the best way that you can over this next semester is going to be enough. Like, what you do, who you are, what you bring to your virtual classroom is enough, because you're valuable, you're needed, you're supported, and we just really, really, really appreciate you all.
You're equipped. That's one of the best words I think applies to you. You're equipped, whether it's what you have from your training, whether it is what you have from, you know, the support that's behind you. You're equipped, and I think as trying and uncertain as this season is, it's important to stay mindful, and maybe that can be part of your that mantra, part of some of that self-talk that you can start reincorporating, is that I have what it takes for us to be able to have success at the end of the school year, even if it doesn't look the way that I expected or that, you know, we would like for it to look. It's going to be something brand new, and just keeping that in the forefront as you're moving forward and putting your best foot forward.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Awesome. Is there anything else? Any last words? It seems like you guys have covered it all.
Y'all set us up well to come on and
Make it easy.
Well, thank you to Melissa and Josh for coming together today to give us just some practical tools. If you're an educator out there, I hope you are taking notes that you have to take the time for yourself and participate in self-care. Like Josh said, if you need a yoga mat, whatever you need to do, whatever it takes for you to become better, initially inside, that's what we need to do in order for us to shine outside, in order for us to pour into others, because we do not want to pour into other people on an empty cup. So I appreciate you guys today for taking the time to pour into us and pour not just into the educators, but you're pouring into me too. So I do appreciate that. Well, this is the end of day 2. Day 3 starts tomorrow, and we are talking to our students. Our students are the leaders of tomorrow. So I am excited. We have some activists that's on board, and I cannot wait to have this conversation with them. So join us tomorrow at 4 o'clock right here on my Facebook page, Pamela Davis, and continue to support the movement of QOR. I appreciate it. You guys have a good night.
Take care, everybody.
Take care.
Hi, I am Natasha Garrett, and I am launching a new radio show, Relevant, the radio show, and it is going to air on Sundays at 10 a.m. on realmusicradio.com. Our first broadcast starts tomorrow, August the 9th, and we invite you to listen. There is some music, there is relevant word and inspiration, encouragement, and just some positivity and light in all of everything that we're going through. I think we all could use some encouragement and some positivity. So join me, 10 o'clock at realmusicradio.com. Airs nationally. You can access it from anywhere off the internet.
Awesome.
We invite you to listen. My name is Natasha here. Join us for the launch of Relevant, the radio show. Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. I'll see you there.